Jaire's gone, right? And that's what I'm saying, man. You can go talk to 10 different Packer fans, and you'll probably get maybe 6 or 7 on one side or 3 or 4 on the other, right? It's like nobody's sold one way or the other in terms of like the group as a collective, I guess you could say. So we had a little bit of new information that kind of dropped from the Jaire situation. So I did, the other day we went through and talked about the off the field stuff, and we talked about the injury history. Like, how did we get to this point? Well, let's just give you guys a quick update on what's going on there with Jaire. Is he staying in Green Bay, right? And it's Buckets Goldenberg working overtime again.
So Buckets Goldenberg, live from the news desk.
Jaire's future with the Green Bay Packers remains uncertain, but recent signs suggest the star cornerback might stay for 2025. After months of trade rumors, new developments hint at a possible reunion. The trade market for Alexander has been quiet despite the Packers exploring options. No major interest has emerged from other teams. With a $24.99 million cap hit in 2025 and injuries limiting him to 16 games over 2 seasons, suitors may be wary. This lack of buzz could push general manager Brian Gutekunst to keep him, especially without a strong trade return. That's the thing that Goody keeps saying is like, we want to make sure the investment we've made, we get a return on that investment. What he's saying here, in my opinion, if we don't get a return, his ass is playing for Green Bay is the way I take it. Like, if you cut him outright, you don't get anything in return for it.
Right.
You just, that guaranteed money that you gave him was just, all right, it's out the door. You took a bath. That's the way it goes, right? So there's just a quick breakdown of the contract. Like it says, a 24.9 cap hit. Now it goes on to say, this was as reported by Easton Butler on Twitter. Alexander has also shown goodwill toward new teammate after the Packers signed Nate Hobbs to a 4-year, $48 million deal. Alexander reached out to congratulate him. This move suggests he's still invested in the team, not distancing himself as a departing player might. Hobbs could pair well with Alexander in a revamped secondary if he stays. So Easton Butler put that out. New Packers cornerback Nate Hobbs recently spoke to the Athletics' own Matt Schneidman. Hobbs mentioned who reached out to him. Yeah, reached out to me. Rashawn Gary, Jaire Alexander actually congratulated me. And yeah, those guys so far as what Nate Hobbs said to Matt Schneidman. So you got Goody saying we got to get enough in return. They specifically asked Goody, do you think there's a chance he could play for him? He said, yeah, I think that's on the table. He didn't close the door. Now, would he close the door? Absolutely not. That would be stupid. That would be bad business. If he said, nope, Jaire ain't playing here, teams would go, all right, we're just going to wait for you to cut him then. And that could still happen. I'm not saying it's off the table. Moving along here. Meanwhile, this is what broke today. Safety Xavier McKinney posted an Instagram video of him training with Alexander this offseason. McKinney, a defensive leader, and after a stellar 2024, shares a clear bond with Alexander. Fans on X have flagged this workout as evidence he may stick around, as disrupting that chemistry could be costly. I don't know if you guys seen the video, but it was awesome. And listen, Jaire looks like he might have put on a few pounds of muscle. I'm just telling you. Like, he's always been kind of a thicker corner, kind of like we talked about Jaire Barron. But in this video, I was like, that boy been on the bench. So I don't know. I want to get your all's take on this with him reaching out to Hobbs, Goody saying, hey, it's still on the table, and now McKinney posting this video of them working out together. Like, am I the only one going, it sure seems like there's more signs pointing to Ja could return than there is Ja's gone. I don't know how y'all feel about that. I want to get your all's take, and then we'll move along here and talk about the cap ramifications and all that. Let's start with you, Emilio. What do you think about this, man? Do you think go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I still think that he's playing. If they didn't figure out the money situation, like, he is still a part of this team. He's still under contract. I don't understand why would we cut him and lose $15 million. I mean, that's rough. I'd much rather ride it out. I think it was 3013 put up a tweet earlier. It was like the NFC North cornerback matchups, and it was John and Hobbs in there roughly around 77s, I think. But that combo would be crazy. We wouldn't have to worry about our secondary. We could get Evan and Bullard in there as we needed. We would have, depth. We'd have a lot more depth if Josh stayed, especially him, having that relationship with X, having the relationship with anybody in that room.
All right. Yep. Yeah, Coach Lynn says seems to be that way. 2-0 for this says, I think the videos are more the boys doing internal recruiting to show how much they want him to stay. I could see that too, Jacob. What do you think, man?
I think that's actually a good point. I think that we looked at what happened and the lack of leadership in this locker room for years prior. And Josh Jacobs and X came in and they said, all right, we're going to fill that void. So I think you saw clearly what Jacobs was doing in the offseason, maybe poking and prodding in certain situations to try to make people light a fire under their butt, if you will. I think that X may be doing something similar on the defensive side of the ball, saying, all right, y'all, let's go out. Let's make some plays. Let's go, have some fun, get the camaraderie together. I do agree as well. It's like, it just seems like such a tap dance for Ja to be doing where he's reaching out to Nate Hobbs. He's going to hang out with X. He's doing a bunch of stuff where, like, why? I can understand. Yeah, maybe it is because for him to show, hey, I'm not a cancer. I'm still here. I'm the one that still wants to be here. The Packers are the ones that maybe aren't giving me my time of day. That sort of, I could see that being his angle as well. But like you said, now I've been going so far back. At one point in this year, I thought there was a 5% chance that Ja would come back. Went back in the other side of the spectrum. I've been like, man, it's like 60-40. And now I'm right back to 50-50. I got not a damn clue. I don't.
Yeah. Coach Lynn, Tim, he says, if you're Ja, why would you not want to play with this secondary? It seems like they're creating something special, man. With what X did numbers-wise last year and Carrington Valentine coming on strong at the end of the year, you go and get this dog, Nate Hobbs seems like he's going to be a firecracker. I'm excited to see him play football in Green Bay, but I completely understand what Coach is saying here, Tim. Like, why if you're Ja, you got to be looking up now going, damn, do I really want to go to Carolina or somewhere where it's like, you know what I mean? Not even competing, like, because that's his hometown, right? Charlotte.
Yep.
But if I remember correctly, but why would you want to go somewhere else and be a part of? It seems like they got something special here. I guess what Coach is saying.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, Ja's never said he didn't want to play in the secondary, right? I mean, That's just pure speculation on a lot of us fans, kind of reading into this. And I'm with Jacob too. I've been 50-50 on him throughout this whole process because I don't know what's going to happen, right? Because ultimately Goody's got to make a decision here or not make a decision and let him play football for the Packers. He's under contract. That being said, an explanation for a lot of this could be something that I don't think a lot of us have really talked about or considered is the fact that maybe Jaire's like growing the hell up a little bit. Like you talk about the suspensions, you talk about the antics of the past. And if you look at, from, the I don't have nothing nice to say comments during locker room cleanout last year to where he is today, the guy's probably maturing a little bit. And I think he realizes what's going on here with not only the secondary in Green Bay, but this defense as a whole under Jeff Hafley. And why would you want to not be a part of this just when the, things are starting to click and starting to make sense? I also agree with the statement that, we have more depth with Jaire on this football team. I believe that was Emilio that brought that up. I mean, you look at, who we got, behind a guy like Jaire and guys that we may potentially draft. We've broken down several corners that could be potential draft hits for us. You still got a wild card in Kalen King, who didn't see much of the field last year, but another guy that we were kind of excited about in that corner room. So I think it would be perfectly content to continue to play in Green Bay. It's just we already know that they haven't reached out to him for a restructure. It hasn't been discussed. So this could be one of those prove it seasons, and he's under contract. If he balls out this year, maybe we do restructure. Maybe we do figure out how to keep him around until he hangs it up. If not, you move on, right? Bottom line, I do. I think he wants to be a Packer. I think that's evident with the way that he reached out to Nate Hobbs pretty much instantly after that was announced. Probably before it was announced publicly to guys like us. He was probably on the phone already welcoming him in. And then you see the bond he's forming here with McKinney. I mean, let's be real. You talk about the captains of that defense on the back end. It's Jaire Alexander and Xavier McKinney. Those are your veteran dudes in this secondary, and I think we're a better team with them playing together.
Yeah, completely agree. 2-0 for this says Keyshawn Nixon also tagged Jaire in an Insta story of him working out as well. Deadfish says a healthy job means this defense make this defense seem scary. Just need another D tackle and fill in some reserves. Completely agree. How about the fact that Baz mentioned, man, I think we should go defensive tackle. We were all like, thank you.
I know.
Been saying that since freaking January. So 2-0 for this says if it's more Jaire's camp that's wanting to leave than the teammates showing him he's appreciated is super important. It really is.
Yep.
It is. And again, Goody's just keeping the cards close to the vest. Yeah. I think that's on the table. He could come back. Again, I wouldn't roll out anything at this point, right?
Yep.
I think it's fair to say too, just real quick, that Goody, like you just said, Clay, he's doing, he's sitting there like Chris Moneymaker with his sunglasses on, waiting for somebody else to either call or to say something or to make a move, or for Jaire to say something or make a move, or for somebody to say, like you said, he even is willing to wait past the draft. And then a certain player maybe that they thought was going to fall to him. Certain teams thought we don't need help in the secondary. We don't have to stretch. We don't have to make even the call to Brian Gutekunst and even make a proposal. He's cool. I really do believe with just chilling and waiting and let the cards fall as they may, because at the end of the day, worst case scenario, he's got Jaire by the, you know what?
He does, man.
He really does. And I just think everybody's sitting here just, Goody's got to do this. He's got to do that. I think he's sitting there with the emoji with the sunglasses with the whole spliff. And he's like, I don't give a crap what y'all do.
It's true, man. It's true. J. Cole says if Ja buys in and then we add Trey Amos, say 54 in this draft, then the secondary could be. Could you imagine that secondary, Emilio? You'd have Jaire on one side. You'd have Nate Hobbs and Keyshawn Nixon battling for a spot on the other. Trey Amos stepping into camp. He may be a superstar day one. Who knows? And then, of course, you got Carrington Valentine, who, had the best passer rating when targeted of anybody on the team last year.
Right.
Like, you could get into that situation where it's like, we've got two spots open. That's the reality. There's two cornerback spots open, even if Ja returns to the Packers, right? So with that being said, it's like you add Trey Amos into that cornerback room, Emilio.
Yeah, I would be running to Jeff Halfley and say, you better get to work, man. I need 110% out of whatever DB whisperer you are, and just get to work. Because if we have that kind of secondary, that's really going to open up the front four. And if we can get pressure with 4 and still be able to cover with 7, once in a while bring 5, cover with 6, but having the confidence to be able to leave a guy out there on an island, or if we wanted to bring a blitz, being able to do that stuff without having to worry about having the safety net over the top, I think that would be crazy.
Definitely. And remind me, Trey Amos here in a second, okay? Don't let me forget that. We'll finish this up real quick. Packers GM Brian Gutekunst hasn't ruled out Alexander's return either at the NFL spring meetings on March 31st, 2025. He said, quote, "It could be a possibility, absolutely," when asked about Jaire staying. He hopes for clarity before the draft, signaling flexibility. This contrasts with earlier talk of a fractured relationship, hinting at the Packers might retain him. Alexander's time in Green Bay has been turbulent, elite when healthy, but marred by injuries and a 2023 suspension. Trading him before June 1st saves $6.9 million in cap space. Post June 1, it's $17.1 million per over the cap. Yet with no trade suitors and Alexander engaging with the team, keeping him could make sense. Paired with McKinney and Hobbs, he could fit the defense, lift the defense to new heights. Says Gutekunst faces a choice: hold out for a trade or lean into Alexander's recent actions and the lack of interest elsewhere. The decision could define the Packers' 2025 season. You know what it kind of feels like to me, Tim? Remember the Rasul Douglas trade? Yep. Goody said, I don't want to trade him. He said, I didn't want to trade him, but at some point the offer becomes too good, right? That hasn't happened with Ja, right? So it kind of feels like that same situation. He's approaching that the same exact way, and it's like, hey, look, we haven't gotten the offer we want yet. Just like with Rasul, they probably would have kept him if the best the offer was a 6th-round pick, right?
Right.
So
I agree. And then in the meantime, what are we doing? We're bringing another talent. We're continuing to get better at the position group. We're in a good spot. We're in a good spot with that cornerback room. Not a great spot, but a good spot, with or without Ja in the mix. Right. We've played this scenario out both ways, right? We just talked about how great it would be, if Ja was still in the fold with the guys that we've brought in and the guys we may potentially bring in. Same scenario if Ja's traded or he's a post-June 1 cut or whatever it is. you still feel pretty good about your DBs in Green Bay, which is, again, I'm old enough to remember when we were ready to beat down the doors at 1265, begging for cornerbacks. So this is a good spot either way.
Yeah. And I remember us talking about this last year. You know how every year leading up to the draft, the Packers social media team will put out prospect spotlights. Look who today's was, just so happens. Trey Amos.
Here's the guy.
I immediately was like, what? Today's player is. So go check that out, Prospect Primer over there. Look like presented by American Family Insurance over on Packers.com. It's just we've been talking Trey Amos at 54, then all of a sudden the Packers pop that up, and I'm like, man. And I don't think it's them going, hey, guys, get ready. We're going to draft Trey Amos. I think they're doing the same thing we're doing with the social media team. The social media team is not going to Matt LaFleur and going, hey, what do you think? That's not happening. They're reading the tea leaves too and like putting out these prospect spotlights. Like you haven't seen them spotlight any quarterbacks, right? You haven't seen them spotlight any running backs.
Yep.
Looking at the same type of stuff we are in terms of information. So I don't know. I think that's kind of cool, man. So, all right, we got one more article to get to. Anything else you guys want to add to the Jaire talk? Anything else? I think we've covered it.